want to actually focus a lot of the ideas also to help grow that village that Ibrahim was talking about. And in particular, for the organizer, Iskandar Investment Berhad, really is to share as much as possible to help grow Iskandar at the end of the day, right? And along the way, also help the rest of for Malaysia to actually achieve our goals to become an innovative and digital nation by 2030. So today, I'm very proud to have all these esteemed speakers from these organizations who are leading us towards this goal. So we got Rafiza Ghazali, CEO of Cradle Fund. We have Muhundan Kamara Pulai, we call him Muhu, CTO of Technology Park Malaysia. We got Raymond Siva, SVP and Chief Marketing Officer of Digital Investments at Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC. Hey Ray, how are you? And we got Mr. Zulfikar Zainuddin, the MD of IIB Ventures. I'm going to call him Zul. So just as a preamble, before we start that panel, I just want to remind the audience that in 1996, Malaysia launched a landmark policy to move from a predominantly agriculture and manufacturing country to a knowledge-based economy. So this initiative was called the Multimedia Super Corridor. So if you see a lot of digitalization in government services and hospitals and schools, it really started in 1996. Prior to that, you can't get digital income tax files, you can't do anything digitally. And computers was something very new, whereas now it's, every home has more than one computer, right? So that was over 25 years ago, and the information age has changed the world and disrupted how government and businesses operate. And a new age is around the corner. If not, it's already turned the corner already, and we're facing it right now. And it's called the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And if you have not looked it up, you must look it up. You must read about it, because it will change the landscape of the world within the next 10 to 20 years. After that, we're just going to space. And so a lot of businesses and government will rely, and to some extent, a lot of decisions will be decided by robots and artificial intelligence, whether you like it or not, right? And these decisions are made on massive amounts of pre-processed data, and humans at the end of the day have to tweak this intelligence so that decisions are not made poorly. So this is the new face of Malaysia. Whether we like it or not, we're going to be riding that wave. And today we'll be discussing that topic, turning Malaysia towards a digital and innovative nation by 2030, and also harnessing that IR 4.0 dream. So I'm going to ask some of the hard questions here to our esteemed panelists. This is going to be an open question. In your opinion, what is Malaysia's report card levels of the multimedia super corridor? I'm going to pass this to Ray after this. And are we really a knowledge-based economy? What has worked in the 25 years and what hasn't? And what could we have done better to prepare ourselves for this new wave? Maybe Ray, you can take on that question.
Sure, yep, more than happy to. So let me start by saying thank you very much, Yana, for hosting us here today, and to IIBV Ignite session for bringing together this esteemed panel. Really happy to be here, albeit at the last minute. But let's go back to 25 years ago, right? It is 25 years, right? We are celebrating our silver jubilee this year.
Exactly.
And if you think about it, in 1996, a lot of you guys remember those times. I'm a rather newbie to this scene, about 2 years in MDEC right now. But what I can say is that really stuck, burned and imprinted in our minds, right? The MSC was something really unique, very, very progressive at that point of time. And the 7 flagship applications really was something that a lot of people didn't expect a country like Malaysia to do, coming out from a commodity-based economy. And if you think about it, the contribution of digital economy as we know it to the GDP 25 years ago was zero, right? There wasn't an digital economy. And right now, if you think about it, digital is the economy, right? You can't kind of like differentiate the traditional and the digital economy, right? Digital is just pervasive. And if we don't recognize that, well, it's time that we do, right? So according to reports, we know that the contribution to GDP, the digital economy contribution to GDP is 22.5%. and it's targeted to grow to 25.5% in 2025. That makes the digital economy as a whole larger than the oil and gas sector or any other sectors in Malaysia. So it just tells you in a span of like 25 years, we have reached a space, obviously accelerated by the pandemic, but we have reached a space where the digital economy is leading almost every parts of our lives, right, and our livelihoods. So where do we go from here? Before that, let's look at the report card. So I've just said it, right? The MSC, we must remember, was also started off for a reason, right? Is to really add complexity to our economy, right? And the 7 flagships were a catalyst for that to happen. Obviously, it then grew organically into other areas, and also with a lot of guidance, right? So in 2010, 2011, actually, we added on the mandate of the MSC. We had the digital economy mandate added on to the MSC, right? And that grew really in 2015 to say officially MDEC also changed its name. Remember that, from the Multimedia Development Corporation, MDC, to then Multimedia DKCEC, MDEC, to still MDEC, but the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation.
Yeah, it was a great move. Loved it.
Yeah, we had to, right? There was no choice in it. And so we brought the likes of, in the first wave, we brought the likes of NTT and all of those great big companies in the world that we wanted to get at a point of time. And the second wave was really to look at the internet companies, right? So we got the likes of Google, Facebook, the Alibabas, and all of that came in on the second wave. And that was really important because the infrastructure was done in the first phase. We had SSO, BPOs, and the rest going on. And then again, as the world changed very quickly, we managed to attract the best of the internet economies and those who are pushing the frontiers of the digital technology. And now the third phase is now application and solution providers.
Okay.
Right, on the cloud, right? So you look at the likes of ByteDance, TikTok, and all the other great companies that are being built. But what took 25 years to build, the Ciscos and all that of the world, now is being built in 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just such an acceleration in terms of how the digital technology has moved and what the digital economy is looking like, right? I think in terms of a report card, we must remember that MSC now is a subset of the Malaysian digital economy, right? And it's time that we also relook the relevance of the MSC moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's why, if you notice, MDEC has recently announced the refreshed MSC 2.0.
Wow. We'll save that to talk about that later. I want to ask you more about that, because that sounds
if I tell you, I'll just have to kill you, right? So we're keeping that under wraps right now, but it will be announced. It will be announced in the next couple of months. We hope that it'll be a refreshed, more relevant MSC 2.0, catering to obviously a very, very different landscape. So I think in terms of a report card, I think we've done pretty well with the MSC. That has given birth and catalyzed now the entire digital economy. The question next is, what does MSC 2.0 look like, and where does Malaysia as a country go to?
No, definitely, after 25 years, the world has changed. So we are changing along. And in fact, we want to try to be ahead of the game even, right? So Malaysia, I think, I've spoken to many startups around the region. They still see Malaysia as a very leading voice in this area, along with Singapore. So we're always in tandem. So what is, I guess, our space in terms of, being a thought leader as a country, right, to the digital economy of the region? So I think that would be very interesting. And, we did have that Vision 2020, and 2020 last year went by like woof. And although we would love to have celebrated some of the achievements of Vision 2020, but because of the pandemic, actually, I think to some extent has helped with even speeding up the process of digitalization, especially, I think, in government services, right? So I think last year was, made the impetus more relevant, and we need to do it faster. And then we're seeing a lot of innovation and innovative move, not just by government, but also with startups and private sector last year. So having passed that landmark of 2020, Last year we announced many things as a government, right? We have these goals that we want to achieve in 2030. We've had the Shared Prosperity Vision 2020 as a landmark policy, the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint, right? The National 4IR policy, they all kind of like come together. But it's a lot to tell the rakyat what it's all about. And largely it went to industry players, but not quite down to the citizen of Malaysia. So I'm hoping that we got a chance to share a little bit more what you guys know as some of these policies. And I know like MDEC will focus on the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint, right? The Tech Park will, do focus on the National 4IR policy and the Shared Prosperity Vision. So I'd like to give a chance to the other panelists, maybe Muhu and Rafiza. What are some of the common goals in these landmark policies that just came out last year? And what is Malaysia supposed to achieve according to these plans and blueprints? And maybe we'll go one by one. What are the key focus areas for each of your agency so that the audience will also know like, oh, we can expect some of these newer programs and targets coming out from your agency so that we can participate in it. So maybe we'll start with Muhu at Tech Park.
Sure, thanks, Lily. And very good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be in this panel with esteemed speakers, panelists here. And okay, so jumping straight into the conversation, I think if you have heard of TPM, you would know that TPM, in the first MSC video that came out, when Tun spoke about the MSC, there were 3 points, 3 locations. Cyberjaya Putrajaya was one, Technology Park Malaysia, and then it was KLCC. This was the golden triangle of the MSC.
Yep.
And a lot of things has happened, a lot of evolution has happened. Technology Park Malaysia initially was a technology enabler, right? It was basically an incubator. Today it's a 4th generation incubator, focusing a lot on technology development for startups. But again, things has evolved, right? And a number of things has moved, and TPM initially, or even till today, does not actually depend on government grant. So being self-sustainable, TPM has, I would say, in a way, has gone into very much in terms of the land kind of an approach, right? So being a landowner, that was the primary function it had. But now moving forward, looking at, as you said, all the different policies that's coming forward, TPM has been given a sort of a new mandate. A new mandate has been injected, and that, as you know, is part of the merger with another government entity called MAGIC, right? And now it is known as Meranti, the Malaysian Research Accelerator for Technology and Commercialization. Now, so what has changed here, it's actually the primary focus of addressing some of the key concerns, key gaps in the ecosystem. So this is coming back to why the policies were developed, also as part of the evolution of the MSC. So a lot of things has happened. The MSC has given us fantastic results when it comes to the GDP contribution, the jobs and all that. There were certain areas, I think it's not just the MSC, but in the country that could be better. For example, the disconnect between the research community and the industry demand, right? And that gap, surprisingly, if you look at the latest results, shows that it's getting much, much bigger, right? So what the IPs is being developed, fantastic IPs coming out, but just did not get much input coming from the industry.
So it's very little commercialization, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. So the commercialization value is sort of is in question, right? Not the IP itself. Right. The second part is in terms of the private sector investment. Now, there was a recent, Mastic did a research, and about the last 10 years, we saw about decline of close to 30% of the private sector investment in R&D in the country, right? And our private sector investment is actually much bigger than the government investment or the private research institution investment when it comes to R&D. So that's a worrying trend, we would say, right? As the country's growth is going into digital economy, we are sort of kind of losing track a bit when it comes to the R&D.
Yeah. So and we're actually indexed by that, right? When you're going to talk about high income nation and innovative nation, the amount of R&D government and private sector spend does come to that report card, right?
Definitely, yeah. And it's also addressed in the 4th IR policy as well as digital economy. And so Meranti's primary function here is basically to sort of become the one-stop lack of a better word, a one-stop agency to focus on R&D commercialization, right? How can we bring ideas to impact, right? And what we call it from return of ideas. Rather than return on investment, we look at it from return on ideas. We focus on end-to-end support from ideation right up to commercialization. But again, this is not done alone. This is with all the partners, with other agencies, as well as private sectors. So if you look at the fourth IR policy, the whole idea is about wealth creation. So digital economy is the primary mover, but digital economy is providing what Ray mentioned, 20-25%. So the question now is what's happening to the rest 70% of the digital economy? Today, it is already in a way being addressed because of the pandemic, right? Digitalization is cut across. Today, we don't talk about technology as verticals anymore. They're all horizontal.
Exactly.
So both our policy, if you notice, there's one policy key enabler 2, talks about driving innovation. So now innovation is not driven just on specific technological area, but rather on a sectorial area. So that's where the government is coming in. Industry 4.0, which was introduced by MITI a few years ago, was the sort of the initiation of the policy. So we did quite okay, quite good, I would say, in a way, in terms of the manufacturing industry. So that's Industry 4.0. But then when we move to the fourth IR policy, what has happened is now the government wants to replicate that with all the other sectors.
That experience to all the other service sectors, the agriculture sectors. So I guess that's why we're seeing a lot of this. People are talking about agri-tech, people are talking about fintech, martech, all kinds of tech. But and you're right. I think what we have done is recognize the fact that digital is now horizontal. It's not a vertical sector. It is now part of what you do with human resource, what you do with accounting. It becomes the backbone of businesses to actually do better, right? Interesting. So can we expect maybe perhaps more education from educational programs from Meranti to talk about how do people commercialize or how people even license out their IP? I think that's the kind of stuff that people are scared that they will lose control over their idea, but perhaps we need to work better with the legal system, right?
Yes, indeed.
How to protect.
That's right. One of the things that also as part of the merger, there's also another entity called Platform Ventures. You probably have heard of them.
Yep, I have.
So they were a government entity, no longer in existence. But the key talent from them, and they're basically an IP advisor, right? They look into IP funds and IP advisors. Have actually been incorporated into Meranti.
Oh, that's excellent.
The other part, correct. So if you have, so that's why when you say idea could be with or without IP. But the protection of the idea starts from the onset of the whole process. So that's also something that when you come to Meranti, you can actually go through. There's IP intelligence, where there's also work can be done in terms of identifying where you could actually IP. Not every part of your product needs to be IP. That also then you can also benchmark it against all the other different regions in the world that perhaps a similar thing has been done. So that's also part and parcel of what Meranti is trying to establish. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to increase the rate of commercialization. And I think if we can do that automatically, then that will actually help the country to create a much bigger wealth.
I'm very glad to hear that Platform has been the institutional memory of Platform has been absorbed into Meranti. That would have been a real loss if we didn't make use of the I think almost 7 years of Platform experience, right? Which is a lot. So I want to tease Rafiza because, at the end of the day, right, Cradle now kind of, people turn to Cradle for their pre-seed grants and, looking at disruptive, new, rebellious tech companies and startups, right? But in the past few years also, in case the people don't know, Cradle also fund a lot of deep tech projects, right? And I guess coming back to what Muhu was saying about commercialization, what is the commercialization? A lot of the deep tech projects that you see at Cradle right now. What can Cradle or what can the market also do better when it comes to understanding deep tech or 4IR type of tech, automation, robots, and all that? And what happened to all the sexy digital startups? What are some of the way forward at Cradle right now?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the panel. Again, I'm very honored to be with my fellow sister brother agencies. Always happy to see the familiar faces, the usual suspects.
Right.
Yeah, as you mentioned, back in 2020, we launched we launched 3 programs: Ignite 1, Ignite 2, and Accelerate. And 2 out of the 3 programs are tailored towards deep tech. Now, it's the first time that Cradle ever launched something, and we said that this is for deep tech startups. That took the company by surprise. A lot of the startups, because they usually come to us and with not specifically deep techs. There may be deep techs, but not specifically deep techs. And the reason why we do that, as the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovations want to further develop our innovation and technology DNA in the country. Yeah, we want to be the creator and developer of technology, and not just adopter and user of technology. And this is the way to go, because deep tech can really put ourselves in a niche area, compared to the rest, alongside with our established digital, infrastructure. And so what we look for at Cradle when we look at deep tech startups, it's not so much about, okay, they have artificial intelligence, they have AI, they have robotic. How do you use these technologies to really adopt them? Like, for example, robotics. Is it for them to be in a manufacturing industry, or to further improve the efficiency of our agri-tech processes, that sort of thing? So it's not just, okay, anyone can produce AI, but the actually adoption of the AI into their existing technology. So it is unlike the traditional startups that we fund before. They may start off as non-deep tech, but as they find that they want to do things faster, quicker, with intelligence and everything, and that's when they start to incorporate deep tech. And that's the reason why when our programs that we launched 2 years ago, that we look at a higher technology readiness level. So they're at TRL 5 and above, because the ones at the beginning, they may not start off with a deep tech imputed into their solutions, but later on, when it has been validated, then that's when they go into deep tech. Yeah. So does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does. No, and I'm just looking at the screen right now, right? And it occurred to me that it looks so much like also a supply chain. So if you're a technology company that's about to start, and you want to incept your idea, you go to Cradle. And if you want to commercialize your idea, you should go to Tech Park. And when you're ready to go regional, you should go to MDEC and IIB. And IIB, the Iskandar region can benefit actually from all these existing projects. And instead of having to work from the start through the way MSc did, right? The tech is already there, the solution is already there. It's now about deploying it across that region and be catalytic towards in Johor and maybe some spillover into Singapore. So I kind of like this how they position your pictures right now. Okay, so I'm gonna ask let's deep dive into this word innovation, right? So a key element in some of these hairy and audacious goals that the government have is innovation, right? Does Malaysia have a national innovation framework? What does that mean? For me, innovation is like a word, and we usually use it with the word disruption, and incremental change, right? So what have we as a country adopted as a formula for I guess, imbuing innovation in everything that we do? And then what kind of innovation should our country be focusing on? Is it technology innovation? Is it education? Is it business? How do we measure innovation? So I'm going to pass that to Muhu and Ray. Muhu, what do you think? What is our national innovation formula? How do we measure something like that?
You're right, Lily. Innovation is such a big word, and it's defined differently when you look at different stakeholders.
Right.
Government looks at it differently from a efficiency standpoint. Industry looks at it from a financial market access. Academia looks at it differently as well.
Right.
So I think perhaps what this is again my personal opinion is that what you see in all the different kinds of policies out there, it does underline innovation, and innovation can be taken as something where Malaysia wants to move, as mentioned by Rafiza just now, from just being a consumer to a prosumer, right?
Oh,
you produce and you consume.
Right.
That's a crucial thing. If you're good at consuming and you start to produce, you are creating new values. And that's value creation. And that's the underlying element in the 4th IR policy, the digital economy policy, right? And I think that's the creation, the impact. The second layer will be the upscale or rescale of talent, right? The development of talent. Because with innovation, that's what you want to go. You want to go to the younger generation. You want to inspire them. You want to get them to look at things differently. You want to solve problems at a global scale.
Yeah.
So that's another way that we see innovation.
Right.
And if you ask me in terms of where innovation should go, I think the technology evolves so quickly. So I'm one person who's in the technology sector, but don't really depend on technology.
Yeah.
Why I say that is because today is AI, tomorrow it could be something else.
Correct.
And
And there's always innovating, like it's always changing.
Absolutely, yeah. So I would look at it from an area of where the investment is going, one, right? Investors are putting in where demands are, one. Second is that the strength of the country, which sectors. So if you look at some of the key startups who are coming up today, they are solving problems in specific areas. Two things that we see very clearly. One is in agriculture. So we've got our top drone companies, where they started off from. The second part is actually healthcare.
Right.
We see that why these two things have become so crucial. I think one was the growth was there, investment is coming in, but the pandemic has basically converted a lot of things. Food security has become a super crucial concern for a lot of people. And healthcare, being able to reach the rural areas, for example, it's actually becoming much more crucial. Recently, we had in our MAGICS program, not the NTIS program, as you already know, which is a combination of multiple agencies.
Right.
We had one of the local pharmaceutical company who actually did the first drone delivery from mainland to Pangkor. From Lumot to Pangkor. It's the first time that we actually did a real-time delivery of medical supply from the mainland to the Pangkor Island, right? Which typically takes about 3 hours. They did it in 30 minutes. So imagine the impact of that in terms of the criticality, right? So we are solving certain problems. So I would say that innovation should go towards problems that are being solved, one. Second, combine that with the strength of the country.
Ray, the MDEC has been around, again, 25 years, looking at innovations changing, innovation trends changing. What are some of the measures that we should be taking in order to encourage? I wanted to add also, with innovation also comes courage, right? The courage to change. And I think one thing about Malaysia, sometimes we are a bit scared of change, right? So maybe your opinion in that area.
Yeah, so we were the original startup, weren't we? 25 years ago, when the word startup wasn't even there. Malaysia was the original startup, right? Yep. And I think that DNA has been built. I think it's been embedded with successive generations, or at least one generation already. Yep. And so I think just learning from that, we know that transformation, when we talk about digital transformation or innovation, it's actually human transformation, right? It's what your mind brings to the table. So what you dream you can achieve, you can, if you put enough of effort behind it, right? Put enough of capabilities behind it. So I think innovation right now really is about bringing practical ideas, new ideas to solve long problems, right? Long held problems. What is the way we can reframe that problem statement, not just on a country level, but also on sectors and society. right? And I think that's really important because the last 24 months has really showed that sectors have been impacted, right? So Muhu talked about culture.
You see Asia turning to farming.
Right? Those sectors have fundamentally changed, right? But when sectors change, then society, there's an impact on society, right? And so that requires new ideas. That requires the will to change and transform, right? And a result of that, I think, innovation will flow through, right? So you either transform a process or enhance a particular process to deliver in a much better productivity, yield, or outcomes. So we'll talk about the drones and whatever else not that's coming on, right? So for MDEC, we have the DIF5, the Digital Investment Future 5. Right? The DIF5 is what we announced. We look at 5 sectors: agriculture, health, Islamic digital economy, and fintech. We look at tourism as well. As smart cities,
Smart cities.
And we believe that this is where this innovation or digital transformation can make the highest impact for society, right? So, for example, in AgTech, you're talking about food security, you're talking about food safety, food traceability, right? And it's ripe for digital intervention, right? It reduces the food import bill, so there's another economic benefit to it, right? Healthcare, right? Access to not just health as we think about it, but it's also about hospitals, right? Digitizing as well as digitalizing healthcare.
Right. And then delivery of healthcare like drones to Pangko.
But let's not forget about mental well-being, right? and health, because those are the holistic sort of health approaches that digital can deliver, right? And so we're focusing on 5 tech and 5 emerging tech, right? So altogether, the DIF5 strategy looks over a 5-year plan in support of My Digital. How do we catalyze and support innovation, working with our sister brother agencies as well? But it cannot be just in Cyberjaya, So
you have to go down all the way to Iskandar.
it's from Perlis to Sabah lah. How do we make that happen, right? I think that's the next innovation that we need to think about. How do we democratize access and accessibility to digital and digital tools?
No, great, Ray, and actually that helps to tie in to my question to Zul. Zul, I've not forgotten you. And
it's just been 37 minutes.
I know. But everybody's like, explaining huge policies here. But Iskandar is, IIB's tagline itself is a catalyst of change. And we're talking about innovation, we're talking about change, and a lot of these sister agencies and all that are right smack just in Klang Valley. And we need a lot more work done in the Iskandar area, in the northern area, in Sabah Sarawak area, right? So if IIB's tagline is catalyst for change, and I assume that would mean focusing on catalytic projects at the Iskandar region, and it's poised to be that new economic hub outside of the Klang Valley, and also to capture that spillover, right? So what kind of innovative programs and projects that IIB is currently investing in, and how would a corporate or startup innovation play a role in the Iskandar region? And then do you see yourself, the IIB and Iskandar and that whole Medini region, how much will they contribute to the economy by 2030? So over to you, Zul.
Thank you, Lily. I think as you rightfully pointed out, catalyst and change are two words that we are constantly linked with. It's also in our tagline. And not necessarily just doing catalytic projects, because if you look from the context of what we are doing, one of the things that we always say is that, we build bridges. And when you look at the phase of the development of Iskandar Malaysia and Iskandar Puteri, to be more specific, where IIB and its investments are, you look at the early stage of the development, we build bridges in terms of identifying the right partnerships in the early days in terms of what was required. So there were the Middle Eastern investors, there were the Japanese investors, even the local players that we have to bring on board to get them familiar with what is necessary. And then we actually literally built a bridge. So,
yes, you
so
did.
if you look at it, the current link between Iskandar Puteri to Desaru, where there's now a new bridge that links the location. Now it's extremely popular as a destination.
I've been on that bridge.
Yes, the famous Avengers bridge. That's something that IIB did back in the early days. Also, the coastal highway linking Iskandar Putri to downtown JB was one of the lessons that we learned from our experience in Cyberjaya, where we're saying that if you want to build a greenfield location and you want people to actually populate that location, you cannot disconnect it from where the central and the focus of the current population is. And we took that lesson from Cyberjaya when Cyberjaya opened up the Maju Expressway. That was a real changer at that time.
That was a major move, yes.
Right. So we learned from there and we actually literally built a bridge. And I think that has continued to be our way forward in how we look at things. Where number one, we don't have to be another party that's going to come up with the same kind of program, policies, and initiatives as, like you rightfully said, a lot of things are being initiated in the Klang Valley already.
Right.
So how do we leverage on what they're doing, understand how we collaborate with the people that we are working with, and then we start to the next phase of what we were doing in how we build bridges to move Iskandar Putri, Iskandar Malaysia, the state of Johor, into the next phase of what was ready into a knowledge-based, service-based economy in Iskandar Putri. So, and if you look at the programs since 2016, which was the most recent phase that we've been in, is about creating jobs, changing lives of people by making sure that it's a center that just not focuses on the infrastructure and the hard development, and bringing in companies. We brought in the universities, the entertainments like Legoland and so on. But at the end of the day, the hardware and the application of that hardware, which is the jobs that we want to bring in, was the focus over the last 5 years. So for us, in terms of change, people always say change is the only constant. So we brought about at the end of 2020 that we needed to figure out what was next. So if you look at the tagline for Ignite is now the flagship event for our new 5-year plan, which is the Iskandar Next program, which stands for the new economy, the new experience, and new talent. So if you look at what is the innovation that we're doing here, is we recognize that change must not necessarily take about something that's completely new. There must be a continued narrative in terms of what we're trying to do, which is the original intention and the original intent of even you can go way back to not just Iskandar Malaysia, but even the multimedia super corridor, which is, if you look at what over the few iterations that has happened, the one thing that can be considered as constant are the taglines of the people, the economy, and at the end of the day, the country. So for us, we continue to build on that narrative to say that new economies are what we want to bring into the location.
Right.
New experiences to having different programs. The last 5 years, whoever has been in Iskandar Malaysia, we've always had to thank them and apologize that they were the guinea pigs.
We are, even in the MSc.
Thank you very much. And of course, the one constant that we always want to focus on is that at the end of the day, when we refer to talent, we're referring to the people. That it has got to benefit the people. We have to make sure that the people are ready. Today, the pace of change is just so constant that are we putting up courses where you're going up for a job in the next 24 months, and that in 24 months that job,
it's gone.
Focusing on talent, where not just upskilling, reskilling, but putting it in the mindset of people that you have.
That learning is constant.
Correct. That learning is constant, change is constant. If you complain, we always use the simple analogy of COVID-19. Where we're saying that if the makcik and pakcik at the pasar Ramadan can learn to sell online, you can learn, you can change as well. So those are the things that we are trying to put together in Iskandar Malaysia.
So some of the key takeaways I'm getting from your answer is, there is a repeatable recipe, right? And whether you like it or not, if you want to make a region in Malaysia and another digital hub, another new economic innovation hub, you still have to start from the bottom. Infrastructure counts, highways count, schools count, education, it counts, before you can even start talking talking about the new fandango, new types of businesses and all that. So I guess for all the other regions who are also listening, right? Cyberview Putrajaya is within our generation to observe how a region grew. Right, we're going to see one in Iskandar, and hopefully within that same time, we're also seeing, economic development and infrastructure development in the northern region, in the East Coast, and in Sabah Sarawak. Right, and only then we can actually raise this country's wealth towards that high income society and first world mindset, right? But there is, it's not anything new. We should learn from all of these past programs already, and that the formula is there. If we follow it step by step, we can repeat that success story that we saw with the last big agenda. I'm going to call out to the audience. If you have any questions for the panelists here, feel free to use your platform to ask questions. And what's going to happen is that the organizers, the producers behind the scene, will pass those questions on our chat box because we're coming in on Zoom. So if there's any questions, please share, and we're still going to continue talking, because once we start talking about change and catalysts for change, we want to know from MDEC's point of view, what is this MSC 2.0, and whether you can give us a little bit of teaser as to what to expect. I think a lot of people are expecting 2.0 will not mean someplace like a triangular physical location, but it's more inclusive, right? So maybe a little bit from Ray. What is the direction of the new MSC?
So absolutely right. The MSC, the Multimedia Super Corridor, defines a corridor, right? A 60 kilometer corridor.
16 by 20, right.
With YBM there.
Right.
And so, work from home, work remote, work from anywhere has really, made that not a necessity. You don't need to be in a particular location to deliver innovation.
Yeah. We kind of saw that even 5 years into MSC already.
That's true, right? But it's a policy decision, right?
Right.
So the MSC was tied to a location, number one, and after the 2017 OECD alignment, it also was tied to fiscal incentives. So the BOGs, if you remember, the 10 BOGs has not been relooked or refreshed over 25 years, right? So while a large portion of the BOGs are still, strong and relevant, there are others, they are not anymore, right? So if you put the location requirement, if you put in the fiscal incentives only, and if you look at the BOG, then, it's really time to rethink how the MSC would look like, right? The word even multimedia, multimedia, right? It's a word that we used way back when. So I think it was time, and the time was, after 25 years, at our Silver Jubilee, in the precept of moving on forward with my digital blueprint launched, it was a time for us to now take a step and say, what does MSC really mean? The intent of the MSC was to really add complexity to the economy, to build up the ICT sector, then the digital economy.
Value add, right, on top of our manufacturing and agricultural sector,
Absolutely. So I think the first thing we look at is the location requirement. Let's expand the location requirement. You don't have to work in a cyber city or cyber center or stay in an MSC certified building to be able to enjoy the incentives, right? So we're going to democratize again digital and access throughout Malaysia. We'll have the cyber cities and cyber centers in there, right? Because that's where you get your high-speed broadband and other amenities that are guaranteed, and not so the other places, right? So I think that's really very important. Number two is the fiscal incentives. We're looking into opening up to non-fiscal as well, because a lot of companies right now, because of double taxation and the new taxation models, they don't need fiscal incentives. Right. What they need is the market access, ecosystem play, foreign knowledge workers, and other things that is more important to land digital investments and to grow in this country. Right. So that's the second thing that we're looking at as well. And then obviously the third thing is about how do we add on, for example, the digital nomad, right? How do you then push out the talents, not just from a urban-centric place, but talent should be able to work in Ketereh, in Langkawi, in Borneo, right? Doesn't matter. So you diffuse the talents across Malaysia, as well as attract the digital nomads, right? From Bali, Singapore, Phuket. And say use Malaysia as a base and bring in all the smart, young, or even old, tech entrepreneurs here and digital workers here. So the MSC 2.0 really is quite holistic in that space. And, I'm not saying anything here that is this PNC. It is something that's been put up there.
Publicly, people kind of know.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be quite interesting because it will be a relook and a refresh of how we look at MSC to make it more relevant and also help us push the digital economy needle forward to become the hub of digital in Southeast Asia.
So being the hub, we've got to prepare infrastructure to attract these digital nomads and all these foreign tech companies. Absolutely. I mean, whether you like it or not, it may not be in the form of, free tax like last time, but I guess we have to present ourselves in the form of talent availability, infrastructure availability, right? Correct. Because connecting to the rest of the world, that's a given once you have connectivity, right? So I guess that's the part where I think Malaysia wants to benefit. I think for a lot of local talent, the chance to work for a multinational tech company or a multinational robotics company, is actually what will make Malaysia, at least Malaysian talent, more valuable. Right, we want to be able to be part of the salaries of Facebook, of Google, and Microsoft, right? So I guess that program continues so that our local people will also benefit from experiencing working in a global company.
I'm just going to just jump in, just give me a minute here. Sure. That, in each region, for example, the corridors, right? Yeah. All of them have got great programs. Iskandar here, obviously, I was there 3 weeks ago, a month, and at the breadth of work, at the depth of work that they were doing. I was in Kuching, we were at Ipoh, I'm going up to Penang next week. And just going across and looking at all these corridors and the great work that they're doing, there are 32 IPs in Malaysia, 32. Right. So I think what is really important with Malaysia or MSC 2.0 is how do we really connect the dots? How do we get the talent issue sorted out? Because we don't have a full-on map, right? Everyone is doing their little things inside. And I think MSC 2.0 is critical to see if there's a talent surplus here, how do we kind of like transfer it there? Or how do we build capacity there because of an inherent strength? For example, Pinewood Studios. I'm just throwing this out as an example. If we're building digital creative content around Iskandar or Medini, then would it make sense to now introduce micro-credentialing and other courses around digital creative content there to build that?
To do filming, lighting,
makeup. I think that is really what we're also looking at and say, let's try and bring all of this together, right? So Malaysia is a very vibrant place to do business digital, of course.
So next time I'm going to try and get people from Talent Corp and Human Resource Development Corporation to start talking about that. Because really, I think when I talk to foreign investors and all that, Malaysia always lose out in talent. And I believe that we do have the talent. It's just that we don't have a record of database of where these talents are in Malaysia.
All of them go outside of Malaysia very quickly.
So it's hard to tap them, right? So I think it's about database. And then there was a question also from Alif Faisal here. Why is there no singular database of startups in Malaysian tech? And Rafiza just answered. Maybe I'll just let Rafiza explain a little bit about the My Startup database that's just launched, but it's not full featured yet. But I think it answers that question about availability of information.
Yeah, so thanks, Lily. And we spoke about it, isn't it, during breakfast at one time. So basically, yes, that's one of the problem statement that I get a lot. Is that, in order for us to make decisions, we need data. Without data, we are making decisions blindly. Right. And so we have this under digital blueprint where we want to create 5,000 startups. Right. You ask 5 people how many startups in Malaysia, you get 7 different answers, Yeah. So we need to start getting data, and that's one. And number 2 is that our data on startups are very fragmented. So for example, Cradle, we have our own data, MDEC, they have their own data, Magic, they have their own data. But as an ecosystem, we need to have a countrywide data. And so this is the exact problem statement which MOSTI felt that they need to do something. And if you look at a lot of our neighboring countries, they have a national led database. Yes, a lot of people also brought up to me a number of private sectors attempted to do that. That's great. At least, there is a point of data, but can we make them, can we aggregate that,
Yeah.
So this is where the www.mystartup.gov.my, it's an initiative under MOSTI, and that's one of the things that we want to do. The whole idea is, for the government, is that there is one-stop center, so that anything you want to know, be it, all the initiatives by MDEC, Meranti, Iskandar, whatever, who, all the ecosystem plays. Because this is the wonderful thing about Malaysia. We have a lot of startup ecosystem players, and that's very, very positive. Unlike before, where you only have a small group of organizations.
Yeah.
So you want to know about startups, you go to this 4 or 5
one-stop website
now,
that give you
it's
answer.
like everywhere, and a lot of the information you get lost, right? So this is what the government wants to build, a one-stop center marketplace. It was launched on the 18th of November. It's still at MVP stage. At least we have to start somewhere. So we are at the process of working with all the various stakeholders on how we can onboard that. Because at the end of the day, we need to serve the startups.
Right.
What makes it easy, as easy as possible for the startups. We need to create these 5,000 startups. We can't do like how we did it before. I mean, like I think there's currently around 1,500 startups. Cradle was created in 2003. So that's, like 19 years ago, and we only have 1,700 startups. How are we going to produce 5,000 startups if not the digital way, right? We want to reduce the number of, formation resources to create startups. We want to encourage as much as possible.
Right.
We have all these wonderful initiatives and benefits and drives and opportunities, commercial opportunities. And where do we get them from? So yeah.
We got another question. No, I mean, I agree. We need that database of companies, because we can get them from SSM, but we only have their registration information. What we need to know is, like, what are you doing now, and what kind of help do we need, right? Do you need tech commercialization? Do you need to go connect with larger partners? Then you can go to MDEC. I need to grow overseas, right? Or I'm operating out of Iskandar. How do I get benefit from IIB's programs, right? So there's another question here. Somebody asked, is it a viable idea to send our people to Silicon Valley and pick up things and implement ideas? I think we have done this many, many times. I believe in exposure. I do believe that Malaysian talent need to be exposed to international activities more often. But there have been, lessons learned from sending people to Silicon Valley. I mean, MDEC has done it, TPM has done it, Cradle has done it. Maybe some stories. No, they should go themselves, right? And not wait for government to fund them, right? So but there were some I guess learnings, being able to go through the eHarvard program. MDEC have sent a lot of expand programs overseas also. What were some of the lessons learned, and what can be done better? What do you want the citizens and these businesses to do a bit more, when the infrastructure and the program has been laid out? Maybe from Ray or Zoe?
Maybe I'll touch that a little bit, as you rightfully put out, Lee. Over the last 30 years, so many programs, so many people have gone to Silicon Valley or other places, whether to Bangalore or to Europe, and learn. But I think that the key is, if at all people want to do things better, is that they have to realize that you can't take a model from one location and implement it as it is, without the right context, without the right adaptation and iteration for your particular purpose. So if you had attended something in Silicon Valley or anywhere else, you must understand, how do you apply that context into what you need to do. So and if I can add one short point on that, is that knowledge also is embedded within Malaysia itself.
Yeah.
There's so many experiences, so many people who have done it, who have failed, that we can learn also from them.
Sure.
To understand what we can do. So I think those 2 points I would like to add to that question that was asked earlier.
Yeah. So I guess it's not about sending people, it's whether people are ready to go over there, right? So a lot of the time we send people who are not ready to learn. They're there, they're wowed, and then they come back, they don't know what to do. Actually, we should be sending people who already have a set of questions and a set of demands and goals, so that when we do send them overseas for exposure, they're already looking for those answers, right? So maybe
one simple example is, if people think that, hey, I went to Silicon Valley, people are just, everybody sitting in Starbucks.
And you think just sitting in Starbucks is enough?
So I come back home, I sit at Starbucks.
Right.
And I think that suddenly I'm going to be innovative. So you got to know that. No, it's not just taking it and mimicking that action. That's how innovation works.
If I could add on.
Please,
Rafiza, please. Ladies first.
Thank you, Muhu. You're such a gentleman. Anyway, we can't go to Silicon Valley to address problem statements of Malaysia. That's simple as that. In order for you to do anything, you need to solve a problem.
Right.
So, but nevertheless, it's not completely not valuable, because there are things which you can learn, networking, for example. I think it's also sometimes inspirational. You go to Silicon Valley and then suddenly you feel hub. I think those are what I would call it the soft value. Yes. But don't worry, you're not going to be able to grow your startups just because you don't go to Silicon Valley.
Yes.
That's all I can say. Yeah.
That's true. Who you wanted to add?
I just want to add on one thing. Rather than us going to Silicon Valley, why not bring Silicon Valley here?
And I think that's true. A lot
we did that before.
SVVCs want to come here. Yeah.
Exactly. I think there was, if you remember, Silicon Valley comes to Malaysia.
Yeah.
That was part of what MDEC and entrepreneurs such as Dash and other people did.
Right.
And I was involved in some of these activities, and I remember the explosion that happened in the ecosystem. Right. Maybe we can send 10 startups, but that impacted 1,000 startups.
Yeah.
So it can go either way.
Yeah. So it's probably better to bring in that experience once in a while here, and then you get a larger set of people being able to listen to great people talk. If you can get Elon Musk to come, right? If you can get Twitter CEO to come and give a talk, that would actually benefit more people to be able to hear it from the horse's mouth. So we're almost to the tail end here. We've learned a lot here. We've spoken about some of the policies that's supporting innovation and our goals for 2030. Thank you, guys. You've been very, receptive to my questions, and thank you for openly sharing. But I'd like to give a minute to each and every one of you to perhaps summarize and maybe give a shout out to the audience. And, in terms of what things are going to come up from your organization in the next 1 or 2 years, and how do you want to engage with private sector? Maybe we'll start with Rafiza.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, so we want to work with as many startup ecosystem players out there. Let's create all this partnership. Let's build an ecosystem that we can be proud of, and let's create unicorns and more scale-ups and more startups. Yeah.
We already made Grab. so Grab has gone IPO at NASDAQ. Yay. As Malaysians, we should go and buy those stocks, support that price. Okay, so Muhu, what about TPM and Meranti?
Sure. We want to work with anyone who's looking into creating values, right? Innovation. Anyone who has got IPs, anyone who's got an idea where they want to create value and move towards commercialization. Right. So those are the opportunities we want to help, we want to provide to you. And TPM being a location, a closed location, allows you to also validate a lot of your products and services out there.
Test bed, huh?
Just test bed, exactly. I mean, one of the few things we have started off already, as you know, we have launched the Area 57, which is a full-on drone location, right, from ideation right up to commercialization.
Okay.
We have just recently also launched the autonomous vehicle. So there's 12 kilometers in Technology Park assigned validated for testing of autonomous vehicle.
Okay.
And we are also now moving into what do you call this, agri-tech.
Okay.
So those are the customer things we're looking at. If you have got any ideas, and if you want to be located in a place where innovation is happening with multiple support from government, private sectors, as well as research organizations, do check us out in Meranti.
Cool. And MDEC.
So
Yeah.
we have to reclaim our position as the lead digital economy agency, right?
Right.
That means, policy making right from the top when we first started out, when we under the PMO. So let's look at some clear policies. The My Digital Blueprint is very, very clear.
Sure.
We're very focused about looking and saying what are some of the policies that need to be put into place. Number two is let's look at our people, and that's why we campaign, which is Saya Digital. And Saya Digital really looks at digital capability and capacity building across digital literacy right up to e-commerce. And really the third one is about getting the quality digital investments democratized throughout Malaysia. So I use that word again, right? Democratized. And it's really heart of digital ASEAN, making Malaysia the heart of digital ASEAN, right? So it's very three key areas here that we're focused on. And I think we're well on track now, revamping our business plans for 2022 and beyond with the right sort of play. And I think with MSC 2.0, we'll be able to see some quick changes and quick wins in terms of how we're leading the digital economy forward.
Cool. And what about you, Zo? What's our IIB's plan in the next couple of years, and what do we hope to see from the Iskandar region?
I think you will see a lot more collaboration,
Okay.
as what you've witnessed over the last 1 hour. I think we're trying to continue to bring everyone together.
Right.
We constantly mention in our conversations that we don't kid ourselves that we are the experts in technology or trying to understand what's going on in terms of what the industry wants. So, but we are good in bringing people together. So, and I think that's going to continue. We have seen a lot of change from the last 5 years, where people in the government's agencies in Johor. Yesterday, the Menteri Besar of Johor announced more programs for digital Johor. So I think we're going to be very active on that front and continue to bring all the players together, let the industry drive what is needed, and continue our role in building the necessary bridges for the industry, for the benefit of the people, the economy, and the state of Johor, Iskandar, Malaysia, and the country.
Okay. Thank you, Zo. Thank you so much to all the panelists for making time this afternoon and to share some of that inside knowledge of the key programs, initiatives currently running in the country. I hope the audience at the conference have learned something and be able to act on some of these key ideas. And if you need to collaborate, then just put a shout out to the organizer and they can connect you to some of these speakers here today.